Since this video is about lens review, I would like to share another story of like how I chose these lenses. After selling my Canon 60 gears, I was thinking of buying a rangefinder camera body, which is Fuji X Pro 2, and after that, and I was looking for two more lenses and an adapter. One lens I wanted to be an wide angle lens, another lens I want to be an street photography lens, and the adapter for Helios 58mm f2 lens. So with a crop factor of 1.5x, Helios would be like 87mm, so it would be naturally a long distance focusing lens, and it also can be used for portrait if you want. It's slightly on the softer side. So I want to share the story of like how I chose these wide angle and the street photography lenses. The fact is, I had no choice. I'll tell you why. So when I decided upon buying a wide angle lens and the street photography lens, I was looking for the brands that are offering in that category within my budget and everything, So I came to narrow down to a few brands, and this is about the wide angle lens. Okay, first I'll tell you about the wide angle lens, and so this is for Opteka 12mm f2.8. That's what I bought, and before which I also looked for a few other brands. One was like Samyang or Rokinon. They were offering in the same focal length like 12mm, and they had the aperture about f2. And there was one other brand called Meike, and they also were offering 12mm lens, but their aperture were like f2.8. I think Meike was like APS-C designed lens. It's for APS-C cameras, crop body cameras. And Samyang or Rokinon, they had lenses for both varieties, full frame cameras as well as the APS-C cameras. I think the APS-C version of Samyang came in the later part. By the time I was looking, there was Samyang available for Fuji X mount or something, and but whatever I was looking, to buy the lenses, I was looking only through Amazon because that is my only trusted site. I don't want to buy lenses from other e-commerce sites because like I may not know. I have to assume, like I have to convert the price value, into Indian rupees, and then I might have to assume what would go for the import duty and what it would go for the IGST, what it would go for the shipment charges and everything. Those sites, the lenses are so remote that the sites that were selling them also did not give such details of the pricing and shipment to India and all the import duty and all these things. I have to assume them. They were all hidden, so I chose to buy it through only Amazon because like everything was very clear and I would know it right in front like how much I'm going to pay for it. So I was looking through Amazon only, and Amazon offered only two brands for me to buy from, in case of wide angle lens. That was Samyang 12mm f2 lens, and the other one was like Opteka 12mm f2.8 lens. So when I decided to buy it from Amazon India, first thing that would come in anybody's eye or like attention when you are on a tight budget is the price tag. So Samyang and Opteka were like in difference of 10 grand in Indian rupees price, and Samyang was on the expensive side, and Opteka was like 10 grand cheaper to Samyang. So naturally I would side for Opteka, but what happened was like I was as a photographer, I took a stand in buying something quality instead of like you want to add more lenses to your kit, than to put weightage to that kind of thought. I was looking for quality, I was still trying to accommodate Samyang in my kit, But if I'm going to buy a Samyang, I may not be able to afford the wide angle, I mean like the street photography lens which I was planning, which is like between 35 to 40 mm. I mean like this is after or including the 1.5x crop, so the actual focal length would be between 23 or 25 or 28, in that category. So I won't be able to afford a street photography lens or even the adapter for the Helios 58mm f2.8 mount lens. Like probably if I buy a Samyang, I might be able to buy an adapter for Helios lens, but that would come in later months. I have to save it for a couple more months and then buy the adapter for that lens. It was in a very tight financial situation back then to decide between Samyang and Opteka. This was all happening in 2018, year end of 2018. So with all that happening in my back of my head, like processing all these informations, I wanted to take a stand as a photographer, looking for the quality in the glass that I'm buying. So I started comparing the specifications of Samyang and Opteka, and in the particular category that I am buying a lens for, the wide angle lens in focal length of 12 mm. So Samyang offered a 12 mm lens with f2 aperture, and Opteka offered a lens with 12 mm with f2.8 aperture. So f2 is much more pleasing, like it gives more light into the lens. So I wanted to check what is further in aperture of Samyang, like so when I looked into the specifications, Samyang was like offering 6 blades of aperture, like which means like you'll have some hexagon shape of bokeh, and Opteka was offering about like 9 blades of aperture, which means like you will have a perfect round bokeh. So we will come into the bokeh topic later, but like more light, but you have hexagonal bokeh and circular bokeh with Opteka, though there is a difference in the aperture, f2.8. So obviously I was convinced for Samyang, but I still wanted to much deeper, take a deep into the specifications much more clearly to convince myself that though the price is so convincing for Opteka, I still wanted some good quality glass. So if you check into the further specifications and everything according to my requirement, and the conditions that I work, like so if you have seen my photo works, I used to due to the restricted budget, I might have to go to a field, do a photo walk, finish that photo walk and come back home on the very same day. So most of the cases it's like I'm already out there for shooting in the locations when the sun is already above my shoulder, like it's in the morning, mostly in the noon or after the noon, and I have to come back to my home. So the light is pretty harsh or it's too bright, or sometimes it's overshadowed day, but still it's a bright day, So in that bright conditions, I needed a filter, in front of my lens. I might have to use a ND filter or a circular polarizer filter to not to overexpose the sky or capture beautiful colors along with the sky, So in need of using a filter was a must in my case. So when I further digged into these specifications, in back then in 2018 with the lens which I was looking at with the Samyang lens that was available with Amazon, there was no information about the filter size or filter size threads, like the size that is there where you can mount the filters to. But Opteka offered a filter size of 72 mm. And probably the newer version of Samyang might been offering a filter size of 67 mm. Still, Opteka being a bigger filter size means like a bigger front element, so more light into the Opteka lens. So in the older version of Samyang lens, which by 2018, which I was looking into, there was no filter thread information, and I might have to mount a filter if at all. If I am in need of one, I have to go for a bigger Nisi kind of filters, like square filters. I have to mount it over the lens. That's going to be a very huge filter sitting in front of my lens, and being a rangefinder camera, like even this 12mm lens comes in the way of the rangefinder viewfinder. And if I'm going to have this much big filter, this is going to still block the view of my rangefinder. So in looking into that specification and the practical use, and I don't want any bigger camera, I was still inclined towards small form factor, so Samyang was falling short in terms of using a filter, and Opteka offered a 72mm filter threads, so I could easily buy a circular polarizer filter or a ND filter and screw it in, and I'm always good to go for the photo walks, which you always see in my photo walks as well. So that's how I nullified towards Opteka, but still I want to take a deeper dig into the specifications, and I chose to use a circular polarizer filter instead of ND filter, because I will also get some better colors. So when I convert them into black and white images, it will still be offering me a very good photograph for as a bridge, when I convert them into monochrome or the black and white image. So I was right now in this point I become very neutral, and I was not okay with Samyang, but I'm siding towards Opteka, though I was kind of favoring towards Opteka right now. When I take a dig into the specification much deeper, Samyang had the details listed out for how many elements of lens that was there in the Samyang 12mm f2 lens. It was like 12 lenses in 10 groups and everything. They also mentioned about how many aspherical lenses that was there in that group, so aspherical lens would reduce the aberrations that is going to come in the image captured, so all that information was available with Samyang, and Opteka, did not give any sort of such information. It was blank. There was nothing to look at about the aspherical elements. It only said it also had 12 elements of lenses and 10 groups, there was no mentions about the aspherical data. And Samyang offered some multi-coated lenses, and along with multi-coating they offered some special one more coating, to avoid all such chromatic aberrations and everything. And Opteka offered me with only multi-coating and everything. And when I looked further, Samyang even provided the MTF chart data, about the sharpness that was there at f8 aperture and at their minimum aperture, and I could not find such data for Opteka anywhere. I'm literally on the web anywhere. I might have to email to the Opteka website straight away and get all the details, but I didn't have that time, or the patience, So at this time, when I was slightly inclined towards buying Opteka, even though it was cheaper, or it had some advantage of using the filters and everything came to into a neutral stand again, and I was much more confused, and I was in a dilemma between Samyang or Opteka, and other brands kind of it kind of ruled out when I chose to buy the lenses from Amazon. So I had only two options. It was between Samyang or Opteka, and Samyang by that time offered me the Amazon had Samyang lens only for full frame sensor, and if it is for APS-C I might have to wait for some more time, and I had no other choice but Opteka. And in this kind of dilemma and everything, I blindly took a gutsy decision of buying an Opteka 12mm f2 lens, f2.8 lens. So I sometimes feel like there is a company and they do all the research and development for manufacturing a lens. They come up with a product, and they also do some research and development in coming with various variations to that particular lens or the product, and they put that data in the auction, or they would present it to their investors, and or the top bidder in that among that investors would get to name their lens on their name, I mean, like with their brand, and they get to sell that particular lens or the product first in the market worldwide. And after the agreement gets over in 1 to 3 years, then they would sell the same design to the other manufacturers, and they would rebrand that lens in their name. By the time the first guy, who the highest bidder, would get the second version of the same lens with the different variation, or the other brands that they are buying the first version, like they might get a different aspect of the same design, like with two aspherical elements or one aspherical elements, or even the aperture reduced to 5.6 or f4 or f2.8, from f2 or whatever. That's how I feel sometimes. That I do not know how Chinese markets work, or how the outsourcing stuff works. So this is a Chinese manufacturer, anyways. But I'm the happiest person today. Like, I did not make any wrong choice, and I was to be lucky that it's performing on par to the other company lenses.